Welcome to Securing Your Brand. Join us as we explore trademarks, copyrights, and intellectual property to ensure the protection of your creative assets.
Hello and welcome to Securing Your Brand with attorneys Holly McFall and Melissa Jeda from Trademark Legal, your go-to source for the latest insights into intellectual property and legal trends. In today's episode, we're diving into the wave of changes that have happened recently at the United States Patent and Trademark Office. From new regulations and updated filing procedures to evolving practices that could impact your trademark and patent applications, there's a lot happening at the USPTO right now. Whether you're a business owner, an inventor, or just navigating the world of intellectual property, these changes could affect your IP strategy. So stay tuned as we unpack the details of what you need to know to stay ahead of the curve in today's fast evolving landscape. Holly, Melissa, so good to see you guys again.
So great to be here.
All right, so walk us through this. What are the main types of changes that we saw at the USPTO?
So one of the big changes is in the fee schedule for the fees that are charged by the USPTO for filing new applications. It basically makes it a little bit more difficult to, in our opinion, to do an application on your own without legal assistance, for the reason that there are penalties now if you make mistakes or there are deficiencies in your filing or you need to fix things later on. You may be charged additional fees, and these fees, while not incredibly enormous, can add up quickly.
There's been changes to the platform. There's been changes to, as we saw earlier this year, to how we search for a trademark, and we want to search to make sure that there isn't any conflicting marks. The USPTO also earlier this year released a new assignment process or a form in the way you assign or be able to give the rights to another owner for a trademark. And now we have a new application and a new form to fill out. So it is really some changes that have occurred at the USPTO last year and this year.
What are the reasons for these changes?
A lot of it is fraud. A lot of it is trying to modernize the technology, trying to prevent bad faith filing, trying to prevent fraud, trying to really secure the process. Like everything else that we're going through right now, going through the process of making sure that there isn't someone else using or infringing on your mark, making sure it's easier to find a mark so that way you know that if there is a conflicting mark out there before you file, and making sure that someone isn't filing an application in bad faith.
And when it comes to the USPTO being a little more strict about what's in your filing, that includes requiring stricter proof of your use of your trademark. So, with the invention of AI in recent years, AI has been used by trademark filers to create fake specimens, fake proof of use. And so the USPTO has to kind of review with more of a fine-tooth comb, a little more closely to make sure that what they're receiving is legitimate.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, AI obviously is changing the game everywhere. Is there specific aspects of the filing process related to AI that the USPTO is trying to kind of attack?
Kind of comes in both ways. It comes both at the time of the application. So in the bad faith filing, you have to make sure you have either are using it in commerce or you have intent to use it in commerce. And you have to be able to show how that's being used. For a good, that it's for sale, that you can purchase it, where it can be purchased, if it's online, how that works. And for a service, you have to, be able to actually purchase that service and use that service, or the consumer has to be able to use that service. So the specimen, how you show that it's being used in commerce, how it's being available for that purchase, is really how they're trying to crack down on AI and people providing fake specimens or things that were just generated for the purpose of the USPTO. And the other way AI is kind of coming into play that I think we'll see some more changes as the year go on, is their office action response. So when there is an office action response, when there is an office action filed in a claim, the response that's written, that it isn't written just by AI, that it's actually done with a legal mindset and goes through the process of making sure the citations are right, and you've gone through and you've listed and, cited everything that needs to properly be cited, that it's not just written by AI. You're putting it into Chat GPT and coming up with a response to an office action. And are all of those research responses, citations, are all of those proper? So they're using it in both ways. and trying to prevent the fraud.
Yeah, there have already been instances, in our legal world where AI has just completely made up things, even court cases, and there have been instances where attorneys have filed those pleadings in court with a case that was completely made up by AI. Yes. And let's just say judges don't like that.
Yes.
And the USPTO won't like it anymore. So that's a big one. And then I just wanted to give an example of the specimen issue, just to be clear of what we're talking about when we're talking about proofs of use. So if it's a good that your business is selling, a lot of times the specimen will be a photograph of that good with the brand name on it. So AI can be used to fake those, by just coming up with a picture and slapping the brand name on that photo and trying to make it look real. And it's getting better and better at that, of course. We've all seen these AI photos on the internet, on social media, sensational news stories that look completely real and they're just completely made up by AI. So the same thing can happen, with products that are allegedly out there with a brand name, but they're completely made up by AI. So the USPTO is really looking to make sure that those don't get through.
So is the reason that someone would do that to speed up the process because they don't actually have the product yet, but they want to get that trademark? I mean, what is the reason what are reasons someone might want to fake that?
Exactly. You're white labeling something, when you're buying it wholesale or you're buying it and having it drop ship, but you want it to be like it's already yours, that you have that product for sale already. You're not wanting to wait to put something out there. Or maybe you're not actually selling that product and you're trying to, kind of cyber squat on that name, through the USPTO.
What about the process of the actual application process? How is that changing with the new rules that came into place?
We currently have 2 USPTO applications. We have what they call the TEAS Plus and the TEAS Standard. Strangely, the TEAS Plus is cheaper than the TEAS Standard, but that's all going away. We're going to have just one basic trademark application. The filing fee is $350. So now we have one application. It's the standard. That's all we're having. You have to fill out everything. You have to properly fill out all that information. As Holly mentioned, they're going to crack down on that and they're going to start charging you a fee for insufficient information is what they call this fee. So by not having everything properly filled out on the application, by not having the proper entity, by not having the, address and domain and things, that are needed for the application, along with the specimen and the description and the right class and the right category and all the rest of that. But other information is missing. Maybe before you would have gotten a letter, you would have gotten non-final office action, being able to correct that. Now they're going to charge you for that. And if it's not filled out, it'll be charged on the application, or they're charging you at the time you get the office action for additional work that needs to be done by the USPTO examiners. This is part of the process of them trying to clarify and streamline the process. Maybe we'll end up having less wait time from the time the application is filed. We're still currently running at about 10 months as of the recording of this episode.
And those fees for insufficient information are charged per class. So if you recall us talking in previous episodes about what a class is, it's basically a category. So a lot of businesses fall into more than one category, and those filing fees and now these insufficient information penalty fees will apply per class. So if it's $100 and you have 3 classes, that's $300. So that's how it can add up very quickly.
I would say so.
In addition to that, they're charging now with the new standard trademark application. If you go ahead and write in your own description, if you're not fit within the exact categories of the manual and you want to write in your own class description, there's a $200 fee. I mean, they don't want to call it a fine, but I think it's a fine for writing in your own class description instead of the examiner being able to review it very quickly by just going right through the manual and making sure that you follow those rules and guidelines. For that additional time, there's a fine to be able to write in that fee. And we're also limited on our text when we write it in. So you're limited to 1,000 characters, not letters, characters. So I don't know, maybe they're taking after Twitter and X and trying to limit how much we talk.
Hopefully not. What are some other examples of that might fall into that category of insufficient information? I mean, what have you seen that people just don't quite get right when they try to fill this stuff out?
I guess choosing the correct class. That's not always simple to figure out which class or classes you're supposed to be in. The descriptions, that's a big one. The description, a lot of people either make their description of their goods or services too broad and write, just too little. If they're selling clothing, they just say clothing. And the USPTO very well may say, no, that's a little bit too broad. You need to be a little more loose. Yeah, you can't just own the entire universe of clothing. Surely we can narrow it down a little more than that. I'd say that those are the two biggest ones. What do you think, Melissa?
I think that one, making sure I know it sounds strange, that if you are a business filing for trademark, and trademarks relate to the sale of a service or a good, so you're typically a business, that the owner is the proper owner, that you are listing your proper entity, if you're filing it and you're going to own it personally, how are you owning it personally? How is that process? And if it's an entity, how is that entity listed? I mean, it seems to be when we are, helping someone that has done a DIY or used a trademark mail or like a processing service company, and they come to us for an office action, a lot of times it's simply fixing the entity that owns the trademark or owns the rights to those trademarks, and this is actually selling those goods and services. And I know it seems simple, but it's something that gets overlooked a lot, and then you've got $100 fee for each class.
And what about when it comes to if the specimen doesn't reflect the description well, like is it difficult for people, especially when they're trying to do this on their own, to make sure that those line up and don't cause an issue?
Yes, it certainly can be. The AI use of a specimen would be one of those examples.
Making sure that the description is actually describing the goods that are sold, that you're actually selling those goods. If you're going ahead and describing, let's continue using Holly's example, and you're really focused on snow gear. You're really focused on specifically, snowboards and snow jackets and snow pants and snowshoes and those kinds of things. Well, you could be in more than just apparel class. You might be in sporting goods and things along those lines, and making sure that you have those necessary descriptions for each one of those classes that matches up to what you're actually selling. You're not going in an online store for services providing of selling snowboards or renting snowboards. You're actually going to be selling those snowboards. So you're in the right class, and that your description actually matches up to the goods or service that you're actually providing. Otherwise, you could be hit with another fee for, failing to describe the goods or service, or having to, worse, file a new application because you wanted to try to broad or shorten that class, and you're not within the right categories because of the description of goods.
Melissa's got snowboarding on the mind because she's heading snowboarding. So now Florida girl's going snowboarding.
It's cold.
How many jackets do you think you'll wear at one time?
Definitely 2 pairs of thermals. It's all about the layers. That's what I have learned.
Layers. Yes.
Florida girl, when she goes up north, it's all about the layers. So yeah,
base layer is important. Base layer is important.
Your foundation, it goes back to everything we do. We talk about it a lot. Your foundation, making sure you have your right foundation in place, whether you're going to go out in the cold or you're going to be going ahead and starting a business, starting an entity, doing cybersecurity, whatever it is, you got to make sure you have that foundation in place. You got to know what your plan is, know how you're going to use it, and make sure you're prepared. I mean, isn't that the name of the game anyways?
Yeah, I love it. I love that correlation too. Nice job there, Melissa. That was impressive. So all these changes that we've been talking about throughout this episode, how do you see this sort of changing, or affecting someone who is thinking of filing a trademark on their own?
Well, like I said, I do think that it makes it a little more difficult to do it on your own. One of the big things that we always say is that it takes about a year usually for a trademark application to completely go through the system. So that's a lot of time that you're just sitting and waiting, but not just waiting. You're still working on your brand. You're still building your business and operating, and you're producing products that you're putting that name on, marketing materials, website, social, all kinds of things that are a big investment in your business. It's completely in your best interest to make sure that you're doing it right from the get-go, because not only are there all of these new fees if you don't do everything right with your filing, but you could make a fatal error in your filing that could cause you to have to, a year later, file a brand new application once the examiner looks at it and might find something that can't be fixed, because not everything can be fixed after the fact.
Hiring a trademark attorney doesn't guarantee that you're going to get all the way through to registration, but it at least lets you know where all the pitfalls are, gives you a risk analysis of where things are going from, so you're not spending that money to a brand to go through the process. Because I think almost as bad as infringing is having to go through the process of rebranding, to find out that I've done all of this and I now have to rebrand, or worse, I did all this and I didn't do it properly, so I have to go through this again. And I,
wait again.
still don't own the name yet a year later.
Give me your best horror story. How long has it taken somebody because of problems like that?
Unfortunately, is when we really have to tell someone, I'm so sorry, that's not a mistake that can be fixed. It has to be refiled. You have to go through this again and wait that 9, 10, 11, 12 months to get an answer. And they've worked so hard and they wanted to do it right, and they wanted to go through it, and they wasn't intentional. It's just the application wasn't filed properly. There's a service or good I can't, expand into, and what they actually should have been in the right class, and I can't change that.
Yeah, I mean, I've done trademarks before, and it's confusing. I mean, it really is. Like the process, it's like any government website. It's not exactly the most straightforward thing to look at it. So it doesn't surprise me that people kind of make mistakes and then come to you guys and go, help, help, help. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Securing Your Brand with attorneys Holly McFall and Melissa Jeda from Trademark Legal. To connect with Holly or Melissa, you can head to securemarklegal.com and be sure to like and subscribe to our channel and leave us a review in the comments. Holly, Melissa, so great to see you guys again. Thanks so much for being here.
All right. Thank you.
This was so much fun.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.